Good evening, coasters. This is one of your illustrious Sonic hosts, Malzilla, with a little bit of an experiment tonight. I'm trying to do a special little recording, a mini-sode, if you will. We here at the Sonic Hosts Coast to Coast podcast strive to provide you with the content that is both entertaining and informative. Realistically, trying to do a podcast with one of us in Japan and one of us in the US, and time zones are an utter bitch, kind of allows us not to cover all the things we want to. Plus, we all have our own lives, me and Radri. We got our own schedules, and we can't always collaborate the way we want to. So I'm trying this little experiment of a little mini episode to kind of go over some of the IDW comics and other things. And if you like it, let us know in the comments. Follow us on the social media, or just hop in the Discord and say, Malza, this is dumb, or Malza, please do this more. I don't know how often I can do it, but I kind of want to do this, at least when it comes to the IDW comics, once every arc's finished, or unless something crazy happens. So, with all that jargon out of the way, let's talk about the state of IDW and the Phantom Rider saga in the most recent issue, which came out this week on February 5th, issue 76. So, we've talked about IDW Sonic on the podcast several times. Radji and myself, Chevelle, John Dobbs, sorry, John, when he's popped on. And for the most part, at least, we've all kind of felt to extreme, except for Dobbs because he loves it, that IDW for the most part is solid. It's very good. But there have been times where it's been spinning its wheels from time to time. I know, I enjoy it, but I also feel like it's kind of been in the doldrums a bit. I know Radri and Chevelle have felt that way too, but especially after issue 50. But with the most recent arc, Phantom Rider, the comics have kind of gotten nice, much needed pep in their steps. I can say, certainly, at least in my opinion, that this has been Evan Stanley's best work writing Sonic. Of course, I'm also a sucker for all things tokusatsu, so kind of given my name and given the nature of this arc, that's kind of self-explanatory. There's a lot of bias going on. That being said, I wasn't a huge fan of the Writers games, which is obviously this is a lot of homage to. So take that with you. Well, so the Phantom Rider saga ran from about 62 issue 62 to 75. It's a nice story. The setups has some highs and some lows, but once you get into the actual meat of the saga, it's really good. It does have a couple low parts in the medium section. The medium part of the main story of the Clean Sweep Grand Prix, but that's given. Otherwise, it's a great story. Clutch is a great bad guy. You get amazing scenes from Surge and Lanolin. Sonic's Phantom Rider get up is just amazing. I want that squin. I want that as an action figure. It's awesome. Again, as I mentioned, I think this is Evan Stanley's best written professionally Sonic story. I love her old fan comic, Ghosts of the Future. If you haven't get a chance to read that, out there on the internet, try to find it. It's beautifully unhinged in the best ways possible. But going back to this, I really did enjoy this issue. Now, this also kind of goes into the 2024 annual, which plays into the Phantom Rider saga as kind of an epilogue. But the funny thing is, it came out like 2 months before the Phantom Rider saga ended. So we kind of got to see what was going to happen next before the current start arc finished. Now, for most people, it's kind of weird, maybe a little anticlimactic, but it worked. The 2024 annual was 3 stories. First one was written by our dear good friend, Mr. Ian Flynn, and then with art by Thomas Roethlisberger and inks by Rick Mack. And then you had Isman Omar Atta. I hope I said that right. He wrote a story with Knuckles, with Adam Bryce Thomas on art. And then Gigi Drew did the last story in the annual Shattered Diamonds. She had a lot of help on that with Mara Fuenska. She did some pencils herself. Matt Frost did that, as well as, the colors, Leonardo Ito and Valentina Pinto. A lot of work went into that one. But how those stories worked out, first one was called Heroes Calling. It starred Surgeon Kit playing off the events of the Phantom Rider saga, in which Kit and Surge were kind of shanghaied into service to help Clutch, but then realized he's an ass, so they ditched him. But during this whole arc, they found out they had fans, in their attempts to, pick fights with the Phantom Rider and stop the Phantom Rider, aka Sonic. They gained a lot of fans out in the public. One of them being the daughter of the train conductor from the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog's wife and kid. So, really nice. Left a really interesting mark on Surge. And in this story, Surge and Kit decide to play hero a little bit, save the populace. They kind of like the hero worship that they're getting, but at the same time, Surge is has a bit of an epiphany, realizing that she's not as angry as the world as she was, say, in issue 50, and she kind of sees this Sonic cycle that Starline had been talking about, and that Robotnik causes a problem, Sonic saves the day, and it just repeats and repeats, but the people just kind of let it happen, and the people are dumb, they can't take care of themselves, like, Sonic has to rescue them, they can't rescue themselves. But she also says they're not bad people, so she's kind of, her anger is kind of just ebbing away, and Kit's kind of confused and concerned, and the two of them concoct a plan that they're going to try to be heroes, kind of in an anti-villain type of way, and just suck up all the hero adoration, and should they day come where they have to finish Eggman, they'll finish him off. And then, Sonic and Tails are next to, bump off at their leisure. Now, Kit realizes that this may be a problem if there's no trouble for Surge to be the hero too. So Kit decides that, if worst comes to worst, he might secretly cause some problems to, cause some issues for Surge to save. It's a really interesting story. I know a lot of fans have been kind of touch and go with Surge and Kit kind of being this. Sonic has always had a villain problem outside of Eggman, and has really especially had a problem with female villains. Now, there were plenty Queens of Mean, Queen baddies in the Archie days. Iron Queen, Leon Da, Wendy Witchcart, when she's allowed to come out of the classic world. I could go on and on. There's a bunch of them. Breezy was a great anti-villain, but none of them have kind of, for various reasons, brought over to the games or IDW. So Surge is really the first female villain of IDW, and I know a lot of people just want her to stay bad, but at the same time, what they're doing with her is interesting, so I'll allow it. But yeah, we need some more female villains who are just bad for the sake of being bad. The next arc is, or I should say arc story, is the Knuckles story. I believe it's called For My Destiny, where he kind of just chills on, Angel Island, as Knuckles is to do, since he was not, he was not an active participant in the Phantom Rider saga. He basically kind of thinks about his job as the Master Emerald's Guardian, the good, the bad that has come with the job, and kind of coming to terms that, for all the bad that's happened, it's given him a lot of amazing adventures, amazing opportunities to meet friends, Chaotix, Rouge, Amy, Sonic and Tails mainly. And then his musings are cut short by Sonic casually laying on the Master Emerald and Knuckles kind of going cuckoo and asking why he's there. And they're like, why can't we visit a friend? And then he chuckles and laughs like, well, I know us all too well. What happened? Plus, you see tornado kind of crash landed. So Sonic, Tails, Amy sit down to chit chat with old Nux about their most recent adventure, and that story will be continued in issue 80. So we'll find out exactly what they're talking about in a few months. And then the last story is kind of the origin story of Mimic the Octopus, how he kind of went from a actor, side actor in movies to a knife wielding mercenary with some very Homelander esque tendencies about cutting out, attachments to others, as well as kind of a cautionary tale for what Whisper may become if she continues down this path of hunting Mimic, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. It's a great story. Gigi did a great job. She wrote this amazing Tumblr post kind of, explaining her whole thought process during writing the issue. And it's really great. Again, there's this very Homelander-esque scene where, Mimic talks about, becoming clean and pure. And it reminds me of when Homelander's talking to himself and says, about not needing love to be pure and clean like marble. It's very nice. Plus, it's also really cool to see like what Whisper was like before all the trauma, and she was great, and all we lost with Mimic's betrayal. So very good, but that kind of covers Phantom Rider and the Annual. Both are very solid, very on par for IDW, and in kind of that, maybe not so much on par, but definitely above par. Very enjoyable. Not phenomenal, but very enjoyable. Which leads us to issue 76, which serves two purposes. It serves as an epilogue for the Phantom Rider saga, as well as kind of a teaser intro to the next arc, and kind of what I'm dubbing the road to 100, because in a couple years we're going to have issue 100, which is a pretty big deal for really any comic book these days. So issue 76 is split up into three stories. The first story, well, not so much stories, but 3 acts, 3 scenes. The first scene is Sonic arriving at the Chaotix Detective Agency. He says hello, startles the Chaotix. They start kind of playing good cop, bad cop on him because of his actions as the Phantom Rider and being a menace, and they give him a lot of grief. Sonic gives them some grief back about working for Eggman and getting tricked by Eggman, and they all kind of decide to move on because they're trying to figure out what happened to Clutch, because at the end of Phantom Rider saga, Eggman in his Robo Egg form, that was the egg extreme gear that this Phantom Rider was riding, turned into kind of a Mecha Robotnik and grabbed Clutch and flew away. So Sonic's worried that, okay, Robotnik ran off with this other bad guy. That could be a problem. And we also find out that Clean Sweep is still under its operations. It's still being actively doing cleanup. It's, as a business, it's still functioning without Clutch, and they're trying to figure out, like, well, who's running this operation. I have some ideas, but needless to say, Sonic and the Chaotix decide, well, when worst comes to worst, you gotta go back from the beginning. So in next issue, in issue 77, they'll be returning to the White Park Chateau, where they first met Clutch and had an encounter with Dr. Starline and his Tricor. So it looks like Rough and Tumble will be part of this issue, and we'll see where things go. The next scene has to deal with Silver and Blaze. Now, in the wake of issue 75 and the destruction of Restoration HQ, Silver's Victory Garden has been, well, kind of wrecked. Silver makes an analogy that it seems to be this is a metaphor or analogy for every time he tries to come and save the future by changing the present. Now Blaze says, that may be so, but she admires his determination and his ability to not just get beaten up by the moment. And pretty much Silver says, you know what? He's not going to grow a garden anymore. He's going to grow an orchard. He's going to grow apples, and he's very excited about it. You know who also is excited about it? Amy. Because Amy and Tails show up talk to Blaze and Silver. Amy has this cute little like, "Oh my God, you're gonna grow apples. That's amazing!" And she and Silver have a little fun little moment. Tails explains that Amy and him are off to visit the various local chapters of the Restoration, because kind of how the Restoration worked was Restoration HQ was kind of a glorified, kind of a, how do I say, the word's escaping me. Sorry. Distribution center. There we go. So basically, from all these areas would have local restoration chapters. Anytime missing persons, supplies, building materials, they would all send this information to the main hub, which was Restoration HQ, and then from there, Restoration HQ would send it out to the local, charter chapters. So also provided intelligence information, and with Restoration HQ taking a bit of a dive bomb, Tails and Amy are off to figure out, is the system still working? How is everyone doing? Has the system been broken? So on and so forth. Blaze decides to offer her assistance, saying as a princess, it is her duty to protect her people. Tails is a little confused, like, you're not our princess. That's Sally. Just kidding. But Blaze has a very calming, very touching statement that they are her friends, and she considers her friends her people, so she's there to help. Now, yes, this may be a infringement on interdimensional sovereignty, but hey, keeps Blaze around, and we get this really cool shot of Blaze and Amy and Tails on the tornado flying away. But before they head out, they ask Silver if he wants to come along, and he declines, saying that the diamond cutters need some help. So, off in the distance from the soon-to-be Victory Orchard, we have all of the IDW OGs, so Jewel, Tangle, Whisper, Belle, and Motobud and Lanolin are kind of having a bit of a pity party. They've all been through the ringer in this last arc. So Silver kind of appears and kind of starts an impromptu therapy session for all of them. Kind of let them get their feelings off their chest. It's very nice. Jewel starts off saying that she's quitting the Restoration. This upsets Tangle and Lanolin, but Jewel is the events of issue 75 and the destruction of Restoration HQ, she blames on herself by getting, because she was deceived by Clutch. Tangle tells her not to worry. She kind of scoops Jewel up in her tail and swaddles and snuggles her and saying, hey, you did what you thought was best. Don't let a bad guy like Clutch ruin a good thing, like the Restoration. But, Jewel kind of agrees, but you can tell she's shaken up a bit, confidence-wise. A big thing happened. Lanolin, who spent the majority of the Phantom Rider saga getting, hated by the fandom for being mean to Silver and Whisper for not believing them when, Duo was secretly Mimic in disguise. She gives a very analytical assessment and ultimately apologizes, saying that, in her effort to do the right thing, she got tunnel vision. She focused on the end goal as opposed to the process and the people, and ultimately through that, it alienated Whisper and Tangle to the point where they couldn't trust her to tell her that Sonic was the Phantom Rider. Basically, all the drama. So Sonic fandom, put down your pitchforks. Lanolin's great. She's apologized. And quite frankly, Lanolin is a really great character. She's a much needed different voice to the IDW originals and to the Sonic cast in general. I know a lot of people have talked that she is the new Sally or the new Jeffrey or whatever, but really she's the anti-Starline. Both these characters are looking out from the outside, looking into the cycle of Sonic and Eggman, and realizing that maybe we can change it by doing different things, by breaking the cycle, trying to bring order to chaos, if you will. But where Dr. Starline, pretty much since he was such an egotist, he thought he was right regardless, even though he was wrong and didn't have the maturity to admit that he was wrong and he didn't really know what he was getting into. Whereas Lanolin showing that she also realized that she's in over her head, she's lost her way, and that she is sorry, but she still wants to do good. She wants to work with the system. She wants to keep the restoration around, but she also realizes she's not the person to lead it or restore it. But so what she wants to do is rebuild Emeraldville, which was the ruins of the town that they built Restoration HQ on. So, kind of, Jewel asks her if she has an experience. Lanolin pretty much says no, and the two decide to work together to rebuild the town. Tangle thinks it's a little bit much, but she's happy regardless. But then we get to Whisper, and Whisper has the best reaction to this. Silver asks her, "Whisper, what's next for you?" Whisper responds in 2 lines, in not a whisper form, not in her usual whisper dialogue. She basically says, "Find Mimic, end Mimic." Now Tangle says, "Hey, wait a minute. We can't end him. We have to stop him. We've done this song and dance before, yada yada." And Whisper just says, "Yes, of course." And then she kind of looks to Silver and says, "Silver, would you like to help us stop Mimic?" And she puts stop in quotation marks. So, and Silver says absolutely. So Silver and Whisper are going to go off, turn Mimic into takoyaki. And if there's one thing I've learned from copious years of watching anime and other genre fiction, is once a bad guy's origin story is revealed, they're usually not long for this world. So Mimic, your days are your days are numbered. So we'll be seeing you soon, I figure. And then lastly, but not least, we have Belle, who says, well, she's happy that, after her father, Dr. Tinker, or Mr. Tinker, died / returned to being Eggman, she thought the world was a big, scary place. But through all their adventures and shenanigans, she realized it's not that scary. But they're also danger magnets, and as much as she loves everyone, she needs a break. So she and Motobug hitch up a little flower cart carriage and basically put themselves on a bus and are off to travel the world to help people. I'm sure we'll see her again, probably around issue 100, but it's kind of, she puts herself on a bus and, return to her home planet, almost Poochie-esque. I know a lot of people, she's hit and miss with a lot of fans, so I don't mind her, but this was kind of like, well, maybe this is the best ending for the character at the moment. Now, obviously, Evan created her, and Evan's still the lead writer, so I'm sure we'll see her before too long. And yeah, that pretty much sums up the issue. Again, it set out what it needed to do, which was close a cap on the remaining plots of the Phantom Rider, as well as kind of introduce the new steps. Now, there is one plot from the end of the Phantom Rider that doesn't get resolved, but does get mentioned. That is the mysterious disappearance of the Chaos Emerald from Tails' workshop. Now, we saw it at the end of issue 75 in kind of a Geiger-esque platform, very bioorganic. No one really knows, but in March, we are getting what seems to be the finale of the Year of Shadow, because the Year of Shadow didn't really officially begin till March of 2024. So basically, that would be March to March of 2024 to 2025. And since IDW has been really the only Sonic thing that hasn't done much with Shadow this last year, he's getting a special one-shot that looks very Resident Evil 4 Silent Hill-esque. So I think he's going to kind of delve into what happened to the Emerald, and eventually they're probably going to reconnect for issue 100, whatever that may be, the return of Starline, maybe setting up a post-Frontiers IDW Sonic. Maybe the Freedom Fighters get finally reintroduced or given more proper game forms. So that's really all I wanted to cover with this mini-sode. Again, this is just a big experiment. If you guys like me rambling on for 15-20 minutes, let us know. We'll do more of these. Maybe we'll do some on the games, some on Archie, Sonic, maybe some character deep dives. So again, let us know what you think. I know Raji and I talked about covering the upcoming Sonic DC crossover on the main channel as its own separate thing, as it's getting published by DC, written by again Ian Flynn. So that's really all I got. Again, feel free to follow us on social media, X, Blue Sky. I know I neglect our Tumblr, but haven't really had much to post there recently. Again, if you feel like it, join our Discord, chat with us, meme with us, all that fun stuff. So until next time, coasters, stomp you later.